Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Harakah, Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders, great millstone who rule well, and shalom to the whole full elect. This is Payal of the GMS London camp, and this is News and Prophecy, Prophecy and News. I have an article here from Zero Hedge, which basically the title reads, Armed Protesters Begin to Arrive at State Capitals Around the Nation. Alright? So, wow. You're basically having these armed protesters showing up at state capitals around the nation. All right, so various, if what I'm reading is right, all right, because the way, I'm guessing it's an American article, the way the capital spelled is different to the English spelling, but I'm guessing it's the capital within the capital cities within the states, all right. So which is crazy because it shows you what time we're in. The transition of power from Trump to Biden is really dividing the nation, all right? And it's really, as you know, Trump really speaks to the Republicans, all right? Those of the Republican mindset with America that believe that America should go back to how it was before, with the racists being on top, or really Esau, Edom, the so-called white man being on top and everyone being subject underneath, and the old ways of American lifestyle being upheld basically, as opposed to the liberals, which Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, represents, which is basically changing, accepting of everything new, and that goes against the stereotypical American way. All right. So let me read, and that's why even they're saying there's other information out there that the first thing Joe Biden's going for is basically the people's guns, basically. All right. So this is stirring up a lot of tension. All right, as you can tell, and we had Trump's people basically stormed the Capitol building in Washington D.C. So that's definitely gonna give a lot of confidence into the minds of these people that are protesting on behalf of Trump. All right. So I'm going to get into this article. Lord willing, you be edified. So it reads, armed protesters have arrived at multiple state capitol complexes across the country Sunday morning. All right. This follows a special bulletin from the FBI last week that warned armed protests were being planned at 50 state capitals and the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C., ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th. While the protesters are being identified across various platforms as members of so-called Boogaloo movement, they largely appear to be generic anti-government anarchists, some of whom call themselves Liberty Boys and others who oppose the conservative Proud Boys. Their sudden emergence surrounding the inauguration is curious, to say the least. Yeah, it really is. So you can see that you got this armed personnel in this photo, with one wearing Black Lives Matter, another one with pride. You know what they use, the rainbow flag for pride to represent gay pride and all the LGBTQ, etc., etc. But basically, the reason why this is being done, man, is no hold bar to who can be called a terrorist in these days. This is what it's establishing. It's establishing that anyone has a capability to basically go against the powers that be. Right? There's no lines being drawn, whether, and the two typical fronts that they operate on being, the left and the right. Right being the Republics, conservatives, and the left being the liberals and the Democrats and whatnot. All right. So reading on, it says, while the protesters are being identified across various platforms as members. Oh no, I read that. Let me read on. A field reporter at the Daily Caller, George Ventura, reports from Ohio State House where he notes the 580 National Guard members were activated to to provide security around the Ohio State House in downtown Columbus through Wednesday. All right, so you can see all these armed personnel. No, all right, we are not a pro-Trump group, said one of the armed protesters at the Ohio demonstration. All right, so you have these people around.
This is the Boogaloo Boys. The guys behind me, myself, are out here supporting the local BLM scene and the Boogaloo Boys. And we're probably going to piss off a bunch of Trumpers today, but it's easy to piss them off though. All you got to do is say let BLM speak. You know, they lose it. But that's really why I'm here. I'm just here to show support and solidarity. I had an opportunity to meet my friends out here, and of course I'm going to jump on that. I'm actually here unarmed because I'm not looking to start any trouble. I'm not going to make any waves. Hopefully I don't even have to defend myself today. That is the best case scenario, and it's looking like that's what's going to happen. It seems like it's going to be a pretty chill day. This is the Boogaloo Boys. The guys.
So yeah, so it says we have Proud Boys. We hope the Proud Boys do not come here. We do not want you here. Armed Boogaloo Boys protesting outside Ohio State House, Ohio State Highway Patrol, and National Guards around the area. Right, in Michigan, a dozen or so armed protesters are now showing up at the state capitol. All right. So so as you can see, this is the other side of the spectrum. Trump's people have been so. What you're seeing is the establishment of like a need for authority. This is authority. This is a problem being presented to the people, right? Problem, reaction, solution. All right. So this problem is garnering a reaction. The problem really started with right, these far right groups and whatever, and even now these leftist groups are going to become part of the problem as well, and it's now going to require a reaction from the powers that be. That's why they're sending forth the National Guard, right? FBI putting out intel onto that, and it's requiring state police to go out there. So this is decentralizing the minds of the people to a greater draconian rule over the people, all right, and could culminate to the point of guns being removed from the people, all right, as well as the militarization of the police, all right. And it's funny how Netflix, I noticed this, it was like 2 weeks ago now, because as soon as it got released, I watched it, because I was actually, the crazy spirit, I was thinking about it prior to it being released, but you had Judge Dredd got put on Netflix again, and I used to mess with the comics growing up as a child, and I remember that his whole thing was he's the judge, jury, and the executioner, all right? So basically, they even showed you like basically, a city that fell from its grace, and how everyone was living in those hubs and whatnot, and how they had to basically harvest the organs. They had a thing called the Revac or something like that. I can't remember how it's pronounced, but basically that's talking about when people die, they basically take that body and they basically harvest it for food, and then all the people that live there basically living off the flesh of other people, right, to basically sustain them. So anyway, reading on it says this is what more to the point. A solution is going to be required, all right. So it says if you continue to oppress the American people, they will remain rational no longer, said the armed protester in Michigan. And this is all problematic, all right? People think they're going out there and they're bringing some kind of, revelation, but really they're you know playing into this one world order, which ultimately is the Most High's plan. Right in New Hampshire, a handful of armed protesters showed up outside the Capitol, while similarly, similarly, small group began to assemble outside the Oregon Capitol. The group in Oregon refers to themselves as the Liberty Boys. All right. So you notice these, and I believe these states that are being mentioned are actually liberal states as well. All right. At the Illinois state capitol, guardsmen and state troopers are heavily armed, waiting for protesters. All right. There's a large police presence at Minnesota State Capitol building, as threats of armed protesters could assemble today. All right, so you could see that in that video. So as you can see, all this stuff is culminating. Meanwhile, in Washington D.C., at least 25,000 guardsmen and other law enforcement agencies have the U.S. Capitol to White House area on lockdown. All right. On top of all of this, civil flight observers have said amount of USAF cargo aircraft, C-130, C-17s, KC-135s, KC-465s, bringing National Guard troops to Washington, D.C. Capitol is truly impressive. Almost a constant air bridge, and for the past 7 days. So basically, they got loads of troops heading up into the Capitol, basically. All right. So all this activity here is to be the last 24 hours. All right. So I'm gonna read this scripture. This is 2 Ezra 13 and 29. Behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth. Right, and He ain't gonna deliver everyone. All right, because 2/3 of the nation of Israel have to be destroyed. He's only gonna deliver the 1/3. Right, the elect of the nation of Israel, which contains 144,000, and the other elect members. All right, which are called the 1/3. All right, and he shall come to and he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth. All right, Wisdom of Solomon, the 5th chapter, and the 1st verse, that tells you that about the strangeness of our salvation. All right, and how that he even thought our lives to be madness. All right, and it would end with shame, basically. How they numbered with the Heavenly Father's number. And one shall undertake to fight against another, one city against another, one place against another, one people against another, and one realm against another. And these are the things we're seeing culminate right now. All of these things that are happening, right, within America, with the left and the right, right, these leftist and rightist groups. And the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen, which I showed thee before, and then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest as a man ascending. All right, because he's gonna make himself well known when he reprised. He said, "He will not meet thee as a man." All right, and it tells you in Revelation's 1st chapter, "Behold, he cometh with clouds, and when all the people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another, and an innumerable multitude shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them, willing to come and to overcome him by fighting." So basically, it's what Ronald Reagan spoke of in when he spoke about the Star Wars program, how that if there was an outside threat, from space, it would make all the people come together to fight against that outside threat. All right, and he was alluding to Yahushua's return. Okay, and that's basically what they plan to do. All right, and that's really down to the prophecy. The Lord put that in their heart to do so because that's the prophecies that's in the Bible. All right, so all these